In April 2025, the unmanned systems units of the Ukrainian Defense Forces hit and destroyed more than 83,000 enemy targets with drones. This figure is 8% more than in March, meaning the effectiveness of the destruction increased by another 5%. This was announced by the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Oleksandr Syrsky, at the monthly meeting on unmanned systems. He emphasized that UAV operators have achieved decent results in destroying the enemy. I am grateful to our soldiers for their effectiveness, but today's high-tech war requires constant movement forward, even higher efficiency, and scaling up efforts in the direction of drones, the general added, according to Obozrevatel. The meeting was attended by commanders of UAV units. In their speeches, they shared their unique experience in using drones and achieving the best results. Syrsky emphasized that it is their combat experience, organizational and technological know-how, as well as proposals for solving problematic issues that are the most valuable in such events. The UAV direction is a priority for us as it allows us to deter the enemy and destroy him at a distance, preserving the life and health of our infantry, the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine noted. According to him, the Defense Forces are currently working on tasks to scale the BFS units to brigades and regiments, staff them and build capabilities. The volume of professional training of UAV operators in training centers is also increasing, as is the development of interaction between the army and the public sector, in particular training of drone operators in civilian schools. Obozrevatel says. In addition, the armed forces of Ukraine have developed a roadmap for the formation of a collective training system for UAV units. The primary task of the defenders is to destroy Russian drone operators and their control points. The Commander-in-Chief emphasized that the unmanned systems forces of the Armed Forces of Ukraine successfully tested the methods of such combat in the operational zone of one of the operational tactical groups. But the enemy is also not asleep, so Ukrainians have no right to underestimate the successes of the Russian aggressor in the field of unmanned systems. We must maintain the high pace we have set and stay ahead of the enemy in the field of implementing modern technological solutions on the battlefield, using all capabilities of our army, society, defense industrial complex, as well as the assistance partner countries, Syrsky concluded. As Russia's armoured vehicle reserves dwindle, the occupiers are increasingly turning to civilian vehicles to transport soldiers to the front lines, including Chinese golf carts, Belarusian motorcycles, Lada cars, Bucha vans and Gaz-69 trucks, and even electric scooters. Many of them are being modified, installing, for example, anti-drone grills. But the latest addition to the civilian transport arsenal may be the most ridiculous. The Russian military used a school bus for an attack, writes Forbes. A Ukrainian drone operator spotted a yellow school bus parked near the front line in the Donetsk region. It may have broken down or gotten stuck trying to drive off the road in the soft spring ground. One of the kamikaze drones with a video-guided system reportedly flew straight toward the bus, hit it and set it on fire. The media outlet stresses that the bus is extremely ineffective as a means of transport on the battlefield. Civilian vehicles are better than walking, but they obviously offer no protection and cannot provide fire support with the guns mounted on them, explains analyst Jakub Janowski. So attacks using them instead of real armoured vehicles are more expensive and more likely to fail. They are also unlikely to be able to overcome trenches, barbed wire and other anti-personnel obstacles. But the Russians have little choice. The article states that the confirmed losses of the Russian side in the 39 months since the start of the full-scale war against Ukraine amount to 17,000 units of equipment and other heavy weapons. This is more than the equipment of many armies of the world, and more than the Russian defense industry, which is under sanctions, can produce in 3 years. Russia's annual output of new tanks and infantry fighting vehicles is estimated at around 1,100 units. The Kremlin is adding new vehicles to Cold War-era hardware pulled from vast storage depots, and even those depots are nearly empty. Hence, golf carts, scooters, cars and a bus. The Donetsk war bus wasn't the first ever bus to go to war in recent years. Islamic State militants and their most fearsome opponents, the Kurdish Peshmerga, both modified civilian vehicles for combat use in the 2010s. The big difference between the ISIS and Pesh battle buses and Russia's own battle bus is that the former usually wore a lot of add-on armor to protect them from enemy fire. The Russians often add protection to their civilian assault vehicles, but there's no evidence they gave the bus in Donetsk this treatment. Maybe there was no time. Maybe the engineers who fit cars and trucks with improvised armor weren't ready to give a much bigger vehicle the same treatment. Russian occupation forces continue to saturate the temporarily occupied Crimean peninsula with troops and equipment, fearing to lose it. This was reported in the commentary to Crim Relay by the representative of the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, Andrei Chernyak. He noted that in response to the threat of losing the peninsula, Russian troops will increase the number of units and personnel. According to Chernyak, Russia's main goal is to guarantee the security of Crimea and its defense. Chernyak emphasized that the main task of Russian troops is to maintain control over Crimea and prevent its capture in the future. To do this, they plan to strengthen the peninsula with troops and equipment as much as possible. Ukrainian political and economic expert Taras Zagorodny emphasized that Ukraine will never recognize Crimea as part of Russia. Nobody will sign up for this. Who would want to sign their own sentence for treason? Purely theoretically, the US could recognize Crimea as Russia. This will give nothing but shame, he emphasized. The expert says that a drop in oil prices is expected soon, which is the main problem of the aggressor country Russia. At the same time, the US is hitting the entire arc of Russia's allies. They are hitting Iran. Sanctions were recently introduced on oil supplies to China. Pressure is beginning on China, and China is now devaluing the yuan, and I am convinced that this is not the last devaluation of the yuan. And for Russia, this means that its reserves are devaluing. If Russia devalues the ruble now, it will lose another 20% of its income from oil trade, he noted. According to him, strikes are still being carried out, no matter how hard the United States tries to save Russia. We can learn from the Europeans. They say that without the US, of course, nothing will happen. Nothing will work out. Meanwhile, Portugal is buying Swedish Gripen instead of American F-35s. Of course, without the US, nothing will happen. Only first, Europe will stop buying American weapons, will push American business out of Europe, because what is it needed for without security, etc.? So the states are already losing money for no reason, Zagorodny added.